Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And we're Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about Assassin's Creed.
So we were actually invited by Ubisoft to take part in a special early demo play of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There was a section of the campaign that we actually got to take part in and play through, which is a lot of fun. And then we got to spend the rest of our time going pretty much anywhere we wanted to. Which is incredible. So, we're really excited to bring that content to you guys and show you some of the actual gameplay that we got to do.
In addition to this, we have a whole week of Assassin's Creed content coming your way. I think it's going to be about 3 to 4 videos that we're going to be releasing over this next week, so keep an eye out. We're really excited for you guys to see what we got in store for you.
So yeah, without further screwing around, let's get into it. So, the very first thing that we did within 5 seconds of the game was pet a dog. So 10 out of 10 review, done. No, but so the first thing we did, when we went to get our quest intro was kind of go up and go into this longhouse. And we spent probably the first 10 minutes just exploring all the little details of this longhouse.
It was absolutely incredible. The longhouse and a lot of other things that we saw in the game were so intricate. Mm-hmm. There was carvings, knotwork, basically everywhere. There's just so much time and energy put into this thing.
Yeah.
It just immediately starts immersing you into the environment.
Absolutely.
One of the things that, we discovered in the Longhouse is all of, the furs and, the pelts that were everywhere on the ground, which you would find in any Viking dwelling. Basically, you would have like the furs to keep you warm in the winter and everything. The one thing that, didn't quite gel as kosher with us is the rugs that were there.
Yeah.
That was like a little bit more like the European design, I think. Not quite Viking Age, but
yeah, it was a little strange to see almost like a rug that my mom would have, just kind of like thrown out in that room. As far as what we know, the floors in their homes would be pretty much turf. It would be raw earth or maybe some hay or straw or something thrown down, potentially a fur or maybe even like timber frame. But it would be very plain and very simplistic. But honestly, I was distracted so much by literally everything else that I hardly even noticed it. Mm-hmm. And it was great just to see like the layout and the floor plan. If you're not able to go to like a reconstructed Viking longhouse in Norway, it's kind of really cool to walk into this and see like a really proper example of what it would look like kind of inside going into it. Because they paid really close attention to all the beams and the positioning and the rafters and having that big open vaulted living quarters essentially, and then having the little side rooms off of it where people would sleep or food would be stored, and having like the rafters as well too that you could kind of get up to and everything. It was really great to just be able to experience that and run all around it and hang from the banisters and jump around from all the ropes and things in a totally Assassin's Creed way. So it was really great just to get that like really hands-on, close-up detail of the stuff that we've been gushing over in the past. Moving on from there, the next thing that we see is we get our mission. We have to go to our ship. Cool. And the first thing that we see stepping out is just all of the activity going on in the background. There's all these other little houses or shops and things, and all these people are busy at work. It's great to see these people kind of going through and living their life in like their natural habitat in a sense, and going around like their daily chores like you would in a normal community or like in a proper 9th century village.
Yeah, exactly. And the amount of activities was actually a little bit staggering to see.
Yeah.
Like you had, women tending to, the vegetables and, plucking chickens. You had a guy outside of, this gorgeous A-frame tent just sitting there with a lyre, playing music and singing along to it. You had people working on boats. There was somebody that was painting a boat, and then another man right across from him that was planing some wood to get ready to add on
to
the
shape
boat.
the planks.
Yeah.
And a couple of times we even walked through and we saw people actually in the process of smelting iron. Mm-hmm. Going from the raw material, not like forging swords or shields or helmets or bosses or any weird thing, but like actually just properly forming the ingots themselves and getting the raw material to start to work with. And people, sitting by where the boats were and creating rope.
You can literally sit there and you can watch somebody doing their task, and a lot of the times the animations that they have in there are actually people doing those tasks. So you can literally watch somebody do something as you would see it in real life, which is amazing. Like there was the guy at the tattoo shop.
Yeah.
That was practicing his tattooing on a pigskin. I hope it was a pigskin.
Yeah.
But
That or an Anglo-Saxon. We don't really know much about Viking tattoos or if they were a thing at all, but it's still a very historical example of how those, Dark Age tattoo artists would have worked. It was such cool little details like that that really threw you into an immersive environment. It's so densely packed with just so much going on that we even got turned around. And at one point we got so turned around we just randomly found a dude who was carving runestones and like painting runestones, and it was just such a cool little detail to stumble upon and like freak out over. Because we actually saw a few of them going through, and they were beautifully done and carved based on kind of proper examples of runestones that I'm pretty sure are found in Sweden and Denmark, and even painted in a way that would correspond to such. It's such cool little points of interest and amazing that they actually kind of thought through all of those little steps and were sure to include it in such a rich, proper, immersive way.
after a good amount of time wandering around and realizing that there was actually a game to play, we finally made it to the ship with the crew. And first of all, the ship is gorgeous.
Yes.
The fact that you can, or they do it essentially, they put the sail down and put it back up, or the mast down and put it back up, and then the sail goes up and down, obviously, depending on whether you're out in the water, whether you're going under a bridge, everything else like that. It's just so well thought out, because that's the way that they would have had to sail ships back in the day, especially when you're on the river, you know?
It's just so cool, like the detail thrown into not only the design, but also the functionality of it. And what an awesome alternative as well to fast travel, you know, because you of course have a horse that you can ride around on, but a huge amount of it, of the game, is using the rivers for transportation, which is exactly what the Vikings did. It's how they got around so quickly, and it's why the Longship designs were so, ahead of their time, contemporarily, because they had such a shallow draft. You could sail them on the river. And so it's such a huge part of Viking raiding and just Norse culture was their ships, and I'm going to use it all the time instead of fast traveling, because there's activities you can do on the boat too. Sorry, ship. On the ship you can do too. So whenever you're sailing, you can tell your crew to play music, sing songs, or tell stories. And again, it's just this idea of just creating this immersive environment through the gameplay. This is what their culture did. They didn't have written accounts of their history. They would pass it down through storytelling. And so it's great to have that feature ingrained into the game, and such a heavy part of it too, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of sailing around in these rivers.
One of the things that I found really, really cool about these stories too is that it's not just like 5 or 10 stories that they have in the game.
It's tons.
Yeah, they have, we were told that they have so many stories. So basically, as you're playing this and as you're traveling and everything, you're not sitting there listening to the same stories over and over again. You're constantly going to be getting fresh batch of stories thrown your way.
Yeah.
Or you can listen to the music, and the music is so immersive.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just put the boat on like autopilot essentially, and just kind of hang out and be guided to your location and just listen and just take it all in. It's such a cool feature. It's such an interesting way to really like teach people about Vikings, about the Norse.
That's a big feature that I think this game has going for it, is that it has those ebbs and flows. It has those fights and the warfare side of it, but then it also has enough for you to do where you can just kind of chill out and kick back and listen to stories on your ship, or go fishing, or just like meditate up on the mountaintop or something like that. But if you do decide that you're sitting down for a game and you just want to have a chill day, you can literally just do that. And if you decide that you want to go raid a bunch of villages, again, you can literally hop on your ship, and within a minute, maybe not even, you're at this little village essentially, and you just hop off your ship, you get your crew off, you blow your horn, and they're off to raid.
There are these little villages or little like forts or something that are just built on the coast, and they are made for you to attack and just loot and leave. And it's great because it's something you can do, again, in between these stories, in between the music, in between your quest. You could just decide, like, hey, you know what, I want some supplies, or hey, it's here, I might as well. And you can, signal your war horn and steer your ship off, and everybody just kind of disembarks and goes haywire and starts shouting, and you deal with the archers coming at you, and it's just such a cool little aside. And that kind of moves us on to a little bit of the combat, so the actual proper gameplay, like functionality and the dynamics, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of kit out your character. I didn't do any of the dual wielding. I wanted to just avoid that. I know you can, I know it's cool, but I don't really want to because there's not too much of like a historic example of people preferring to do that. So we start off with pretty simple, axe and shield, just trying to get a feel, because that's kind of what you start with. It's a lot of fun. It took me a while to get used to it. I died a bunch, and, it's embarrassing, but it's whatever. But it was really cool the way that you kind of like entered into the combat. It was very chaotic and all over the place, and I'd often find myself kind of focusing on one guy and then getting, destroyed from this other angle that I wasn't even considering. Sometimes even it was hard for me to tell people apart as well, because as I'm focused on one thing, I would kind of think that, some guy was on my side because he's not being very aggressive or whatever, and then all of a sudden just whip me in the back with an axe. I'm like, oh, cut in half, great. So that was really kind of fun. It made it very kind of chaotic and frantic, and I was just running all over the place, and it was cool. So we tried out a few different weapons as well. So after the axe and shield, I saw some people who had these pole arms, big hammers and axes, and keep away from me spears, and so I wanted to get in on that. So I gave myself a Dane axe and wrecked house. It was a little bit slower than some of the weapons, which also makes sense, and it's kind of adds another fun dynamic to it. Mm-hmm. But just the power generated from each swing was devastating. I mean, we splintered shields, we took people off their feet and like took off their heads in one swing. It was so cool to get those like graphic like little cutaway scenes and everything too, for those kill shots.
Yeah, those kill shots were insane.
Yeah.
Honestly, like there were so many good ones that we saw. We were just like, oh
damn,
wrecked.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's even one point when I was fighting a dude on a balcony kind of thing, and I impaled him with his own spear. Like, I don't even know how I got his spear, but I took it and just rammed it through, and he was stuck there, and it was brutal. And there's even different ways to just go about combat with just like a one-on-one person, not even like a boss fight, but just a commoner. And I did it often until I realized you can just smash away at his front-facing side and splinter his shield to nothing and waste a bunch of energy, or you can kind of dodge and move around him and catch him off guard and get him in the side or get him in the back and do way more damage because you're not just trying to smash through this like shield of his.
Yeah, and that's honestly like a huge thing, because that's exactly what people would have had to contend with.
Yeah.
You have to get around your opponent's shield while still keeping yourself protected in order to win the combat.
Exactly.
And that was a huge thing. And also just like seeing the shield splintering away, like, parts of them smashed, that was like such a nice touch, because a guy would be holding a shield and it's like smashed up in two different places already, but he's still like holding on to the little cobbles of it, still trying to protect himself. There was one point where a guy lost his shield. It went flying to the ground, and I kid you not, it immediately got assaulted by a flaming arrow and just set on fire.
Wrecked.
So we didn't try any of I'm going to call them the non-historical weapons, because we've seen a couple of those in gameplay trailers. So the weapons that you had, as you said, it was the axe and shield, then you had the Dane axe, and then you had the spear. And honestly, I feel like the spear was like the most brutal.
Oh, the spear was great.
Bunch.
We happened to find like a really good spear in one of the loot one of the loot chests. But I think it's just a feature of the spear as well. Like I think the amount of like movements and like the different kinds of attacks is a little bit more limited with the spear. So it's very much like a thrusty javelin kind of thing. But it's wicked quick and it's really precise, and you can just dance around and move around a ton. And so in addition to this, not only do you have a ton of weapons and armor that you can kind of switch through that give you different stats and everything, but there's also an expansive list of abilities and skill sets that you can build through and develop your character with. Also, fog of war, so you don't necessarily know where you're going with it and you kind of have to develop that as you go. But it's not only just a beautiful menu, but it's so involved and detailed, and it really allows for a huge amount of customization in your character as well. So no matter how you like to play your character, or what kind of type of combat you like, whether you like to be really stealthy or just in your face berserker, I mean, there's a way to do it.
So while you're fighting your way across the land, we actually had a chance to run into some historical figures as well, and I think that this is only one part of the greater storyline, of course. So I'm sure we're going to meet a lot more characters in the long run. But in the storyline that we played, we got to meet Ivar and Uba, the two brothers that are Ragnar's sons. And that was actually really cool because they both have such distinct personalities, and this is where the storytelling and the writing comes into play too.
Absolutely, massively.
Because you meet Ivar and you know that he is just insane.
It's so cool how they went about that as well. I love seeing the different personalities in the characters. They're not just kind of a cardboard cutout like a typical Viking or whatever. Even within the Norse people, they're all very, at least the ones that we encounter, they're all very different and have their own kind of mentalities and like driving factors in their life. And you can really see that in the storyline and in the dialogue and everything.
Who calls you boneless?
Some backrout I killed in Hibernia. Used his guts to shine my spear. Called me boneless because I move like a reed in the wind.
Not because you're always too drunk to plow.
So as part of the storyline that we actually played through, it was the Norse. It was the Vikings trying to overthrow the Mercian king. So our story took us across the span of trying to get Burgred basically dispossessed and fill his seat with Anglo-Saxon representative for the Vikings. Basically, it's like their puppet king. Again, another historical thing that happened, not only just with the Vikings, but heavily with the Vikings everywhere, honestly. So it was great to see like the political mind kind of going into it, and the planning that went around using him as like a face for the Mercian people, but for the Vikings to kind of control and rule. And the players that we met, Burgred and Leofric, his Thane, they knew that, and they kind of like addressed it. It's great to see the attitude of a king who himself knows that he's being defeated and he's got his back to a wall and is trying to find a way out, but still maintain a semblance of honor and dignity.
And the cool thing about it too is that all of these characters are historical figures.
Yes.
So you can read about Burgred as a king, and Ceolwulf. They're all historical figures, and they get their histories correctly. On the surface,
absolutely.
it's basically. I feel like this is basically going to be like playing through The Last Kingdom, just with your own character. Going through all of these kingdoms. Probably starting from Northumbria, going down to Wessex, and actually playing that storyline of, the English defeat by the Vikings until they reached until they reached Wessex, and eventually started getting that pushback.
Yeah.
From King Alfred, because he's the big bad wolf.
Seeing these creators and seeing these content creators just kind of take their own liberties with some of it as well, but in a very historical mindset, in a historical way. Like in a horseback conversation, we were talking with some of the Englishmen and some of the Norse about our character Eivor leaving Norway, and part of it was because of this new young king who had come in and claimed all of Norway under one kingship. A country twice as large as England, but having one king as opposed to four at the very least.
And that was King Harold, and he took the throne at 22 years old or something?
Yeah, like they think, if he was born around 850 or so, he would have taken the throne around 22 years old, which is absurd to think about what I've done in my life.
And the other thing that came out of that conversation, too, while on horseback is, them mentioning that, Eivor did come from Norway because Also in this game, the English are calling them all Danes,
Yeah.
right? And just that infusion of we are not all Danes, some of us are Norse, and that is a very big distinction. Well, not a big distinction, but it is definitely a distinction between the two.
Yeah.
And realizing that you had people coming from all different countries, to kind of fill in the ranks.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of strife between them too.
There's so many little facets of unique information that you can draw from like the most basic of conversations, and it's something where you're gonna have to be paying attention the entire time if you want to get the most out of it, because I feel like just in a flash something really prolific or really important can go by in just a quick sentence in a conversation. So as you're kind of going through, there are these little icons kind of dotted all over the map. So some are yellow, and those point to special kinds of loot and like equipment. And then there are some that are blue, and those are world events. And those are kind of just like random side quests, random things that you can kind of stumble upon and investigate. And we got to a few really interesting ones. We had one that was right off the bat that was very serious. Like as soon as we got there, we found this like curse on the area, and everything got wicked dark and gloomy and terrifying. And basically somebody had sacrificed like a horse to put a curse on the Norse, and we had to destroy the icon to stop the curse, basically. And
Yeah, they called it an eating pole. It wasn't really an eating pole, though.
yeah, it was startling and and
Creepy.
And involved animal and I think human sacrifice. So all the same strange, but not what you'd typically expect from an eating pole. And this was something that was more like suspended up in the air. It took me a while to find out because I was like, where is this thing?
And then you remember you're playing Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and I
there's
remember
things
playing
above
Assassin's
you.
Creed, and it's like, oh right, this is a 3-dimensional game. I can climb buildings. But it was really quick, just like a little side avenue, but it was a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one where we got to eat fly agaric and go through like a hallucination journey, which was again just really straightforward and educational, but just interesting in the way, it still made you think through it all. And we got to some silly ones too. So we got to one of the first ones that, were the silly side adventures that I wasn't expecting, was this woman belting for help out of this tower, guarded by this lone warrior. And like the second you touched him, he was like, oh no, don't harm me, and ran away. And turns out it was just some weird sex thing that she was all into. And it's like, yo, what? Where did this come from?
And then she starts hollering down at you to be like, oh, you are my new savior.
Yeah, you're
Please
like,
save me.
Got to be kidding me. Oh, you're a strong, handsome warrior. Get away from me. It was
You didn't
so
even bother finding her.
I tried to. I wanted to like break it, but I couldn't
sort of.
break it. It was fine.
And then you wander away from that, and then you wander onto basically Ivar and Uba wannabes.
Yeah, right?
That just want to be these large warriors. So they set up, this house that they want to burn down, but neither of them brought a torch. So they're looking for a torch to set the place on fire. And as soon as you do that, they're just like, oh no, we can't get in. You have to get in for us and get our...
Yeah, they tried to break down the door that they locked and left the key inside. How do you lock the key inside the house? Idiots. And they're like, oh yeah, we stockpiled the thing to make it more realistic for us to practice with. And it was just pathetic. Pathetic. And so great. Because again, it's another way to just laugh about kind of what the whole thing is too. It's a way to just bring comedy into their adventures.
Yeah, basically.
It's just these comedic twit saga of the Vikings. Oh, so goofy. The twit saga. I want to read that as a story.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is the activities that we did.
Yeah.
Aside from the raiding and pillaging and the fighting and everything.
Yeah, so what do you do after? What do you do in between? And trust me, there are plenty of things to do. We didn't even get through all of them. So one of the first things that we saw was fleeting, which is basically Viking rap battles. And it's really great to see because in the first trailer that we kind of went through, it seemed very basic and kind of just boring, almost kind of trying to find like a rhyming word at the end of the sentence. But there's more to it than that. In the examples that we kind of saw and went through, it's not just that you have to find a word that rhymes at the end. You have to kind of match the cadence of the rhythm of the spoken verse as well and get everything to match up. And everything has a time limit in addition to that. So you have to kind of do it fast paced and think on your feet. So the first couple, I got kind of close to it, but not quite on the same beat. They were a little bit wordy or just kind of off. So you do have to kind of find your rhythm, and it ended up being a lot of fun. Just kind of read through and be like, oh, which one do I want to use? Like which would be the best response here? It's not overly complicated. Like they're not trying to recreate like proper Old Norse rhyme schemes or anything like that necessarily, because that would just be bonkers. Like you have to know Old Norse to be able to do that. But they do it in a like a modern way that still kind of has the same like temperament to it, which I appreciate so much, because a lot of the time fleeting was used for throwing insults at each other, or for slanderous stories, or for joking around and poking fun at people, or for bragging even. And so it's great to see all of that kind of content as well included in the feuding.
So the other thing that we spend a while doing is playing dice games.
Yeah, it took a little bit to get through, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't anything that was based on like historical games that we theorize or that we know of. It would have been cool to see some of those reconstructed dice games that we have. But this one was very unique and very specific to not only just like the Viking world, but also to like an overarching game. So it was cool. So each of the die had either axes or shields or something like that, and you basically had to attack the other person and do enough damage to take their hit points away. And you could also gather favors and call upon the god's wrath to do damage for you, and it's very farcical, and it's very cheesy and corny, but it's still a lot of fun, and it's a great way to pass time and gain collectibles and just kind of do things throughout the world.
Yeah, and it was fun, and like it's fun watching like little animations and stuff that they have going for it. But yeah, like the game itself wasn't really based too much on anything Viking related. It's more of just the fact that we know that they played games. Like
exactly, we know they had dice games.
I would love to see Nefertofel.
Yes.
That's what I would love for them to include, and maybe it is included. Maybe we just didn't see it.
Maybe,
but stuff like that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would love to see Nefertofel or Holotofel or something like that. Even just a very simplistic one, so it kind of goes a little bit quicker. That would be excellent.
Well fought.
The gods favored your hand today.
And then the other one that we kind of encountered was drinking. Proper Viking activity for proper Vikings. You literally just pair up and place a bet and try to outdrink the other person. Really simple. And a lot of fun. I was no good at it.
You tried.
I tried. But it was really great because you had to time the cadence, and then they throw you off because like as you're drinking you'd like start to fall over and like get drunk and not be able to keep yourself up. So it was just, again, it's another just fun, really quick Viking pastime. Yeah, just to kind of throw that in there and be able to throw an insult or two at a random person just for fun.
Yep.
And get some coin from it too. So really quick, guys, just as an aside, in our demo play, we found the best Easter egg in the entire world. I have to tell you what it is, but I'm not going to tell you where it is. It is for Trogdor the Burninator. Yeah. So cool to just see like a reference thrown into it for that. Loved it. But I'm not telling you where because I want you to find it and come back to us. So if you find it, because if it's not guaranteed, if you find that Easter egg, come back and let us know, comment or reach out, because I want to hear your thoughts on it and see how long it took you to get to it. So excited. There's just so much content in this game, and I am excited to explore literally every single facet of it. I feel like there's just so much more even from where we left off. We didn't even get to fish. Like, we didn't get to do some of the cool stuff that we wanted to do in kind of seeing some of the gameplay. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to get back in.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a gorgeous game. It's beautiful. It has its shortfalls when it comes to, the historical accuracy of it. We can't not say that for sure. There are times when you run into something and you're just like, that's not entirely historically accurate. But in the 6 hours that we were playing the game, there was nothing that happened that completely took us out of the immersion.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very easy to immerse yourself into this environment and believe it, and have it be believably Viking.
Absolutely.
it does the job. And the amount of history that it presents in terms of what actually happened when the Vikings invaded England with the Great Heathen Army and everything that happened afterwards, I feel like we're going to get a lot of amazing content
Absolutely.
from this game.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to start playing.
So before we go, we just want to thank Ubisoft for giving us a chance to have a sneak peek and bring it to our YouTube family. It was a lot of fun, and we're really excited to see the full thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos, and we will see you in the next one.